Welcome, everybody, to today's show. I'm happy to have Kimberly Artley here today. She is from PackFit in Washington, D.C., in Northern Virginia, actually. Kimberly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Kimberly is also the author of My Dog, My Buddha, and she's here. We're going to talk about training the whole dog. And I have to say that that phrase interested me a little bit because I'm kind of like, where is this going? You know, as a dog trainer, we hear something new and it's kind of like, let's go down the rabbit hole. What's happening here? So first, let's kind of touch on this story here of your dog Lobo and kind of what got you rolling here.
Oh, right. Yeah. So Lobo was my first solo responsibility dog. I was married at the time, and my ex was very much an indoorsy kind of guy, and I'm very much the opposite. So I got tired of asking him if he ever wanted to leave the house or go for a walk. So I got a dog, and that was Lobo. Lobo, I mean, we were inseparable. I mean, he was my BFF, and I was learning about what he needed along the way. I was learning that a lot of exercise is really good, and exposing him to different dogs in different environments really good. And so I was learning from other dog owners and other dog people. And when we ended up getting a divorce, and when that went down, who was once a very well-adjusted, balanced dog, all of a sudden became overly aggressive, highly protective. And in my mindset at the time, and this is a really, really common mindset, I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with my dog? My dog needs training. My dog needs fixing. It was all my dog, my dog, my dog. And I went through about 6 or 7 different trainers. I spent thousands of dollars that I most definitely did not have at the time. And they were popping him full of treats and just harping on obedience, 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 obedience. Mm-hmm. So while he was a well-trained dog, he was still not a well-behaved dog. There were a lot of ingredients that were not getting spoken to, that weren't being developed. So as a last-ditch effort, I mean, his behaviors were only intensifying and getting worse. They weren't getting any better at all. But he could shake and sit like the best of them.
Yeah.
So
you got that going for you.
Yeah. Yes. So my last-ditch effort was a board and train program. I put him through a 2-week board and train, and apparently he was doing really well with the trainer when he was there. He was around other dogs, no problem. Other people, no problem. But as soon as he returned back to me, he went right back to his old behaviors. So There's a massive clue. There's a big piece of information right there that I wasn't in the right mindset. It wasn't in my awareness. I didn't see it at the time. And nobody was pointing it out to me. So long story longer, he ended up biting somebody pretty significantly. And I asked friends, I asked friends of friends, I asked friends of friends of friends, I asked my ex-husband if they could just hold on to him until I figured out next steps. I didn't know what to do. I had tried everything. I spent all of this money. Nothing was working. I didn't understand it. And after that happened, I met a friend of mine in a park one day, and she was just like, look, Kim, I know you don't want to hear this, but, you might have to consider, putting him down. And I was like, what? No, I mean, no, that's not an option. Like, there's got to be something that I'm not seeing. There's got to be something I'm not doing. There's got to be something. Like, I can salvage this. I know I can.
Had that thought come to your mind before your friend said it to you?
Yeah, but it was something that I would quickly write off. I wasn't ready. Okay. I wasn't ready to accept it. I wasn't ready to entertain it. I just, there had to be another way.
Yeah.
But that ended up, that's what ended up happening. And I will never, that was a dark period in my life. And, after that whole thing went down, I just devoured everything that I could about training, about behavior. That was when Cesar Millan had just started like his stuff. Like there was this guy, Cesar, out in California that was walking packs of Rottweilers and like doing amazing thing with dogs. And oh my God, he's part dog and like all this stuff. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, oh, and then I was like, God, if I could only have reached him or gotten to him before all of this with Lobo went down. But I mean, that just, it became my mission to learn everything that I could about behavior, about dog psychology, about training, so nobody else had to go through what we went through, and no other dog had to go through what we went through. And it's, I mean, I'm not like there, like I don't have all the information there is to know in the world. I don't think any of us will. I mean, it's a constant becoming and learning. Like it's a process. It's an ever evolving process.
Yeah, it's
process.
Growth.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's my mission. And there's so many people that his story speaks to. There's so many people in that place, and it's so important. And this is kind of how training the whole dog, that approach came about, is just somewhere along the way, the end all be all when it comes to dog training became obedience training. You know, folks get a pet dog, they get a dog, they're like, oh, we're going to go to obedience training. That's great. That's great. I mean, but all obedience training it's brain training. It's subscribing meaning to verbal cues and commands. That's it. Compliance is a completely different issue, and it's connected to completely different things that need to be spoken to and developed. So the whole dog concept, there's, the mental body, there's the emotional body, there's the physical body, there's the energetic body. And when we, just like what happened and what went down with Lobo, when we speak to only one aspect of the dog, just the mental aspect, just teaching directives and cues and commands, we're missing out on everything else that needs to be developed. It's like sending a kid to school and saying, okay, once you go through, first grade, second grade, or whatever, you're set for life. But, so it's just there are other things that need to be spoken to. There are other needs that they have that need to be met and fulfilled and provided for. And when it comes to behavior, I mean, outside of anything health and medical, all behavior is like, it's a manner of expression, and it's symptomatic of something else that's going on internally. Usually, again, outside of anything health and medical, it's a need that has not been met and provided for, some need. So we really have to take a magnifying glass to it, and we really have to, become Inspector Gadget and start looking at things. And there's a lot of things. There are countless ingredients that contribute to and impact and influence a dog's state of mind and behavior. I mean, even something like construction going on nearby, or a remodeling of the house, or somebody moving in, somebody moving out, fighting and bickering between the people that share the space with the dog, constant fighting and conflict, stress, someone losing a job. Like, there's so many things.
Yeah. And I think too, when you talk about dogs expressing themselves, I think there's this misconception too, is that we have to correct the expression.
Right.
And that we have to shut that down, and we have to snuff it out, and that they're not allowed to do that. And it's like, I have 2 young kids. If they came home from school and they had a bad day and they started telling me about it, I'm not going to tell them to shut up.
Right.
Like, they have to express themselves. Just get it out. Let me hear what happened. Why was your day so bad? But we have the ability to talk to them and understand it, and it's going to come out. Obviously, dogs don't have that ability, and it's up to us to investigate and look into it and try to figure it out. But I think we're just too quick to just like correct and be like, stop barking. I don't even know what you're barking at, but just stop it. So it's because it's annoying. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. And I couldn't agree more. Behavior is information. It's information. Behavior is information. And when we try to shut down and suppress something so much, it's going to bleed out into other areas and other aspects and other behaviors.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, but it's like the whack-a-mole, right? Like you're
Yeah,
never completely getting rid of it. It just keeps popping up somewhere else.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah. All
exactly.
right. So once you see this and you've kind of experienced this whole story, you're starting to dig in deep here, and you're learning more about dogs and whatnot, and the different parts of it. What brings on this training the whole dog aspect of part of what makes that a part of your training program?
Um, well, there's something that I developed called the 5 elements, and the 5 elements is what every single one of my training programs is based through or
Yep.
based upon. The first one is foundational training, and
Okay.
that's relationship building. It's just straight up relationship building. I mean, because when dogs come into our lives and into our homes, we're essentially entering into a relationship with them. I mean, their quality of life is 100% dependent upon, what we're doing, what we're not doing, how we're showing up, if we're showing up, all of that stuff. And at the heart and at the core and the foundation of every sound relationship is the trust and respect factor. I mean, if we don't have trust and respect with our dogs, we've got nothing to build upon. We've got nothing
Right.
to they will give us a middle finger every time we, give them any kind of directive. So, building relationship is first and foremost. So there's that. And, there's also I always liken dog training to inadvertent life coaching, because there is a personal empowerment part of the equation. We have to learn what we need to do to represent a source of information and a source of guidance that they feel safe, that they feel secure, that they feel comfortable looking to, and for their information and following. They've got to know that we've got their back, and not just that we've got their back, but also that we can handle whatever the world might throw at us, whatever might come our way. We can handle it, and they can trust that we can handle it. So that's where the personal empowerment part of the equation comes into play too. Dogs, they're great. They're wonderful little teachers. The second element is communication. We can't teach anything without learning how to communicate effectively. And oftentimes, a lot of folks are sending their dogs a lot of mixed signals and mixed messages.
Yes.
Our verbal cues and directives are saying one thing. Our vocal inflection, pitch, and tone is saying another. I mean, we can create a lot of excitement if we talk like that. There's something about a dog that makes us all want to talk like a Smurf. Me included. I catch myself doing it too, like, whatever. But vocal inflection, pitch, and tone, our body language, our posture, our facial expressions, how we're holding the leash, the energy that we're bringing into every space. Are we constantly on edge? Are we anxious? Are we stressed out? Are we frustrated? Are we impatient? Are we ticked off at the world? Or, whatever it is, this is information that we're sharing as well. Constantly. We say far more without even speaking at all. And dogs are really, really in tune with that. So learning how to communicate with dogs in a manner that they understand, and also just learning how to streamline our messaging and align our messaging is that's the second element, just learning how to communicate.
And we have to remember too that communication is a two-way street here. So even if the dog is barking, I think I will say I was guilty of this for many years in the beginning of of training, is that the training was the one-way street. We always have to constantly direct, and it didn't dawn on me for the longest time to where it's like, wait, I need to start listening to what they're saying too, so we can actually work together. And I think that was probably more of the, every beginner probably goes through that. The longer you hang around with them, the more you see. But communication, man, it's got to go both ways, because if it's only going one way, it's not going to go very far.
Yeah. I mean, that's just with any relationship.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. So what do you got for number 3?
Obedience training. That's the brain training stuff, speaking to the mental aspect of the dog. So, just subscribing meaning to the verbal directives and the cues. Sit means butt to the ground, down, belly to the ground, off, get off, whatever is, all of that stuff. The fourth one is one of the most important, I think, aside from, well, they're all really important, but The fourth one is state of mind conditioning. I'm really, really big. Yeah, I'm really, really big on conditioning state of mind. Folks are unknowingly oftentimes conditioning excitement in their dogs. And I mean, even, yeah. So, I mean, dogs, they're mainly about two things in life. They're about whatever it is they're going to gain through practicing something and what's going to ensure their survival. That's really it. You know, so we don't necessarily need to think about whether or not they're going to survive. I mean, if they're in our homes with us, they're hopefully going to survive. So then we have to turn our attention to what is it that they're gaining when they're practicing a certain state of mind, when they're making certain choices, when they're exhibiting certain behaviors. Are they gaining affection? Are they gaining attention? Are they gaining their meals? Are they gaining treats? Are they gaining accesses and privileges? Are they gaining getting let out of the crate? Are they getting leashed up and crossing through the front door into the outside world? Are they gaining their freedom? Like, if they're gaining anything, it's going to reinforce the choice of state of mind and the behavior that directly preceded it. So aside from that part of it, I'm really, really big on conditioning calm. I want my dogs to gain when they're practicing calm, not when they're jumping all over me, not when they're demanding it, not when, you know, whatever. So everything that they gain through practicing calm. And a sitting dog does not denote a calm dog.
No way.
A dog can be sitting, but he can be like, you know, like going like this, the wheels are spinning in the head. You know, especially when it comes to anxiety or reactivity or anything like that, that's jacked, juiced, excitement fueled, excitement induced behaviors. Really helping the mind slow down. And this is the thing with training the whole dog is, you know, developing the brain, yes, but also developing the mind. And this is so important. So,
yeah, because if you do this, like if you're not registering the brain, right? If this is just obedience, or if this is just communication, or like I can see through these first four here how they all work together, right? With what you've created. But too often, and you know this, and every trainer knows this, is that dogs are not perceived happy unless they're excited.
Yes.
And this is as trainers, this is one of our biggest hurdles, is that your dog doesn't need to be jumping up and down on 2 feet to let us know that they're happy. Absolutely. So I love this. I love the state of mind conditioning thing that you're talking about. I love it.
Yeah. And I mean, and when people see their dogs calm, like if a dog comes through our boarding school program, when they return home, they're calm, they're balanced, which is their more instinctual state of being. A lot of folks interpret that and read that as them being sad. So it's funny how we interpret dogs and their behavior. We really have to start redefining things. You know, a jacked up, juiced up, amped up, constantly like jumping all over everything, doing zoomies and, you know, all of that stuff. A lot of people interpret that as happiness and a joyful dog, but it's imbalance. So, and, you know, and they've got a lot of energy to burn. They've got needs that are not being met, and they're looking for an outlet to release it. It's not happiness. So, and then a calm, balanced dog that, you know, like these Muppets. They're not sad. They're balanced. They're in a good place. You know, there's a difference between a response and a reaction. Responses happen from grounded, balanced, calm headspaces. Reactions happen from jacked up, juiced, amped up, overly aroused, overly excited, overly escalated states of mind. So working on the state of mind piece and really focusing on that, especially when it comes to, because most of the behaviors that we're struggling with are, again, excitement-induced, excitement-fueled, or whatever behaviors. So really honing in and zeroing in on the state of mind conditioning piece of this is really essential piece. I mean, that this is something that I wish that I knew when I had Lobo. The human ingredient part of it, the two major things, the human ingredient, the part that I played in things, and also the state of mind conditioning aspect of things. I really wish I had that information back then, but
Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of my greatest teachers. So.
Yep. I think too, when it goes to, I know when I'm giving lessons, and there's sometimes where you're doing something with a dog, it doesn't matter what it is, but you get that look on their face where they're kind of this way. We know from a trainer's perspective they're thinking, but a lot of times that look can look sad because the gears are grinding. You know, like I've always said, if I could go back and look at myself learning geometry in high school, I'm guessing I would have the same face.
Yeah.
It's like utter confusion, and I don't get it.
That was not one of my strongest subjects.
Yeah, and so I think it's also important for us to let the dog try to work through it too, to a degree.
Yes.
You know, and teaching and dealing with the state of mind that you're talking about is that it's okay for me. This is what I think, just in my experience. It's okay for that dog to try to figure things out. As long as we keep consistent with our directions, it's okay for them to try to figure it out. It's okay for that look on the face to look a little lost for a second. And, you know, just because they're not sky high and they're juiced up doesn't mean that they're still not enjoying themselves. You know, people love reading, people love writing, and they may rather do that than be at a Super Bowl party, you know?
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
That would be me.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's easy because we know what motivates ourselves. We know what makes us happy. We also have to figure that out with our dogs too. You know, because if we try to make something happen, it's probably not going to end well. But once you know what makes your dog tick and what makes them happy, I think people will realize that it's the calm, it's the relaxation, it's the ability to just chill out and not blow up at something that's going to make them just take it easy.
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, just allowing them the space and just having the patience for them to like work things out on, instead of trying to do everything for them and to rush things. You know, we often have our own expectations. Folks will have expectations of their dogs. And when dogs don't meet those expectations, you know, it's the dog that gets judged and labeled and story attached to them and what have you. And dogs are just as individual as people are, you know. I mean, some are highly sensitive, some not so much, some more introverted, some more extroverted, some, you know, have a stronger energy, like mentally strong-willed. Some are softer and more passive in energy, you know. Some have super high energies, and that speaks more to the mental or the physical body of the dog. Some low energy, again, the physical body of the dog. So yeah, I mean, every dog's very much an individual, and we have to allow more. I think that was a really good point that you brought up.
Isn't it interesting too? So Kimberly, how many years have you been training now?
As a legal entity, or just, I mean, I've been around animals my entire life. Like, yeah,
like professionally training.
Let's see, I started PackFit in 2013.
Wouldn't it be nice to go back 8 years and you could tell yourself that you need to be this patient, right? Like you have to have X amount of patience in order to truly see what works for you. I know for me, I would never have believed it in a million years that I have to be this patient in order to make this much progress.
Yeah.
You know, like, especially when it comes to dogs, like it's amazing how quickly we try to work in the beginning.
Yeah. And I think it's just, you know, we've got something to prove, you know. Slow and steady always wins the race.
Yes.
You know, even in our own lives. So patience is an essential. And grace, you know, grace with ourselves, grace with our dogs.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So we have the foundational part, the communication, the obedience, the state of mind conditioning. What is number 5?
Number 5 is behavior shaping. I break behavior into 2 different categories. One is what I call classroom behavior. That speaks more to the mental part of the dog. And the other is real world and functional behavior. 2 completely different. When I first started hearing like the phrase behavior shaping, it was only speaking to the mental aspect of the dog, you know, through like tricks and obedience and whatever. But behavior from the emotional aspect of things, I mean, that's completely different. And the real world and functional behavior, that's the area where most folks are really, really struggling with, typically speaking. So,
Yes.
so the classroom behavior is more performance-based. It's more purposed and more task-oriented. This would include like obedience training, agility training, protection training, detection training, search and rescue, like the more performance task-oriented stuff. And then the real world and functional behavior would include stuff like relationship building, state of mind conditioning, impulse control, sharing space, socialization, social skills. There's a lot of terms in the dog training world I feel need some redefining. Socialization is one of them. Punishment is another.
Yes.
I define punishment as creating a level of discomfort that is meaningful enough to the individual to make them change their course. That's how I define punishment. For some reason, a lot of folks think of physical abuse when they hear the word punishment. I don't know. It was like back in the 50s when Dr. Spock came out with all the positive child rearing books. I don't know, but like all of a sudden, like punishment became a dirty word, discipline became a dirty word, and you know, we were giving trophies to kids for not punching their neighbor in the face. I mean, I mean, there's a yin and yang to everything, and there's a balance to everything. And I mean, just like, you know, every up has a down, every left has a right, every sunrise, a sunset, on, off. Like they're two shades of the same coin. They both complement each other. They both have purpose, and it's the same with yeses and nos, and that's the same with comfort and discomfort. So, but I mean, as a social species of animal, I feel like, I mean, dogs and humans are both a social species of animal. I feel like we both learn through consequences. I mean, that's just, we learn through what's comfortable and what's going to bring joy and pleasure and all that, but also what's uncomfortable. Like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. That was a poor choice. Yeah. So, and again, like, this doesn't have to be anything like physical or abusive or anything. It's just something that creates like an air horn, or like, you know, the spray bottle or something like that. Like something that creates a certain level of discomfort that is meaningful enough to the individual to make them change their course. That's it.
There's a consequence.
Yeah. So, the real world and functional behavior, you know, the socialization, state of mind conditioning, relationship building, impulse control, all of those things would fall under that umbrella. It's kind of like the difference between what kids learn in school and also what they should be learning at home.
Yes. So, and how they act in between classes and at recess and at lunchtime. Like, I referenced the school. I mean, my kids are 10 and 7, so they're in the thick of still learning and learning to be social and still trying to keep up the grades. So it's the difference between the classroom and the social aspect, which is really everything else that goes along with it.
Yes.
And they have to complement each other, just like you're saying everything else does, right? Those still, they have to work together with it.
Yeah. And this is how we develop the whole individual. Like we learn what the needs are, you know, the instinctual needs, the individual needs, the breed specific needs, even if they're a mix of breeds.
Yes.
And we work on, you know, meeting and providing for those. I mean, it's just like with humans, if we end up having some certain types of behaviors, again, outside of anything health or medical, you can trace all of those back to, usually it's emotional needs that weren't met or provided for and nurtured at very specific points in our lives, you know, and end up going through life with a certain belief system due to that. But it's very similar.
Yeah. All right. So we have a question, and this is the $1 million question to dog trainers. So Krista Coolidge says, how do you teach calm state of mind?
How do you teach? So I had said, I was talking about what dogs gain through practicing something.
Yep.
So whenever they're gaining affection, whenever they're gaining attention, whenever they're gaining treats, their meals, there's a certain ritual with my guys A lot of pet dogs they're not earning what it is that they're gaining. And, a lot of dogs develop rather demanding, entitled behaviors and habits. So there's a ritual that I go through with my guys, just to incorporate some ways for them to earn what it is that they're gaining, their meals in this example. Like in nature, out in the animal kingdom, they don't earn anything unless they work for it. They don't gain rank unless they work for it. They don't gain mates unless they work for it. They don't eat unless they work for it. So a lot of dogs, they come into our homes and, we think that we're all doing the best we can with what we know, right?
Yes.
And intentions are always, I like to think, intentions are good. But when dogs are constantly gaining, and they're not earning anything, we can develop those demanding, entitled, whatever types of behaviors in our dogs. So I like to incorporate little ways for them to earn things in the home. One includes the meal. The ritual is like, there's a tile in my kitchen. There's like a little wood bar that separates the tile in my kitchen from the hardwood in my hallway. Nobody's allowed to cross that bar when I'm in the kitchen preparing food. So I have 5 dogs. And they each have their own little eating spots, and they have to wait until I lay everybody's bowls down. And then they're not like sitting there like, oh my God, they're not hyper fixating on the bowl. Like, let me at it. Just say the word, let me at it. Like, they're not tense about it. They're relaxed, they're calm. But of course, this has been conditioned over time.
For sure.
And then I give them the release cue. I just say, okay. And then they can eat and enjoy. And usually they're done in like 3 seconds. So, but so another way you can condition it aside from meals. So, and this is the thing, this is an interesting thing, is food tends to excite the brain in a lot of pet dogs. It tends to calm the brain in a lot of working dogs, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah, that is.
But, pet dogs, well, I think it's just, that's like the highlight of their day. They don't have jobs to do. They don't have a purpose to fulfill, typically speaking. So it's like, food becomes this amazing thing that they get to acquire and gain and do whatever. Yep. But another way that you can condition calm is like if your dog is crate trained, for example. A lot of folks when they come home from work or whatever, the first thing they do if their dog is crate trained, they go in and they're like, hi, hello, mommy's home, with the high pitched stuff. So we're adding to the excitement. The dog's like, oh my God, and I'm so happy to see you, which is great. Like it's, happy, joy. That's an awesome.
Yeah, nice to have a greeting.
Right. It's always nice. It's always nice to feel wanted.
Right.
But, but a lot of folks will just open the door when the dog's like, hey, and then the dog just starts tearing ass around the house and, whatever. So they're gaining accesses, they're gaining their freedom and getting let out of the crate through excitement. And we're oftentimes conditioning excitement in a lot of different ways. Like when it's time to go for a walk, for example, a lot of folks will ask their dogs if they want to go for a walk. I know my dogs want to go for a walk. I don't have to ask them.
Yeah.
They'll announce they're going for a walk. They'll be like, who wants to go outside? You want to go for a walk? With all that stuff. So they start generating a lot of excitement before they even set foot out the door. Which, if a dog has, any kind of impulse control stuff or reactivity stuff going on or like intense prey drive, even like anything, then it's just, we're setting everyone up for a pretty miserable experience because a lot of dogs don't have the ability to control their excitement, to self-regulate.
Yeah.
And this is something that we need to help them develop. This is a skill we need to help them develop. There's a time and place for everything. There's a time and place for happy, joy. But a lot of dogs that really struggle with self-regulation and handling their excitement, even aggression, is an escalated, overly aroused, excited state of mind. It's a not so good one, but it's still an excited state of mind. So really conditioning calm and really working on the mind stuff. The place command is excellent for that. The place command, just the psychological benefits that it provides our dogs. It's kind of like what meditation does for people.
Mm-hmm.
them one thing to focus on, one thing to do. It teaches them to become an observer rather than an active participant in every single thing that's going on around them.
This isn't a command either, and that's what I want people to understand.
Sorry, I usually say directive.
Right, because state of mind is there's not a command that goes along with it, because a dog, even though they can change their state of mind, especially I see it in the daycare room all the time, they can go from unsure when this one dog approaches to, oh, here's my best friend, and they can change that. But we're not talking about going to calm, which it takes some time, especially when your dog's been up here. And when you hear a client say WALK instead of walk, because they know the word walk gets their dog jacked up. Yeah. Instead of taking the time to work through the calm. So your examples are great here, because especially feeding time in the door, those are, ideally, these are happening every day. We're feeding probably twice a day. We're going probably in and out of the door a couple of times a day. And so these are excellent times to practice it. But putting your dog into a sit is not going to change calm, or putting him into a down. So look, I will say it can help. It can help you get there.
Yeah.
But it's not what's going to be 100% getting you there. It takes some time, and just like we mentioned earlier, patience that goes along with it too.
And there's also, there's the 4Ds. There's, whenever we're working through teaching them any kind of directives, we work through duration, distance, duration, distraction, and difficulty. So especially, the distraction part is challenging for a lot of dogs. But the place command is just so beneficial for every dog, no matter what.
Yeah.
And it can be, it can be their, safe little place, their safe little area to go and just completely decompress. So, but it's again, like you said, it's something that, this is a muscle that we really need to, build up and work on and strengthen. And this comes with time. It comes with consistency. We also have to hold them accountable. Like a lot of dogs, just like us, meditation is difficult for a lot of people. Like it's difficult for me, like to have a 5-minute meditation. I have to have a guided one, because I will be jumping out of my skin.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to sit here with my eyes closed for 5 minutes, I'm like, checking the clock, like,
it's been 5 minutes. No, it's been 30 seconds.
Exactly. So, it's difficult for a lot of us. And the place command is difficult for a lot of dogs too, because they're kind of mirroring our lifestyle. And, and if we're constantly on the go, and again, like everything is information. And if we're on edge ourselves, and we're just constantly on the go, and we're doing this and we're doing that, and we don't relax, we don't decompress, we don't take a moment, take a beat, or we're, frustrated, impatient, anxious, all of that stuff. Like it's a practice. It's a practice.
Yes, that it is. Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on. This is awesome to hear Lobo's story and training the whole dog and your 5 elements. This is some good stuff. I think this will help out a lot of dog owners once they hear and or watch this. So why don't you give out your
question?
What's that?
I said, I hope that answered her question.
I think it. I feel like it did.
Okay.
So Krista, I hope it did.
Thanks, Krista.
Why don't you give people your information, Kimberly, where they can find you, website, all that fun stuff?
Oh, okay. My website is It's packfit, packfit.net. The book, you can find the book through all of the major publishing channels like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or whatever. It's called My Dog, My Buddha. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
We'll catch up with you later.
Cool. Have a good one. Stay safe, everybody.